kept looking and could never figure it out. But a really interesting story that was told to me by researcher, author Richard Hall, was who knew Mr. Stringfield personally, that after the war, Mr. Stringfield would never fly again.
Really?
He took trains or buses or drove because the experience scared him so much.
Sheesh.
So it doesn't mean it was extraterrestrial. He believes it was, but it just means that it was so extraordinary and beyond the known capabilities that was, in his understanding, he was an intelligence capacity. He knew what was being observed. He knew what was happening at the time. It was enough to startle him into realizing that something wasn't really right with the situation.
Right.
At the very least.
Yeah. The very least. You know, I've heard a lot about also UFOs and so forth, and even potentially even Foo Fighters, I don't know, but in and around water, going in and out of water, and I know that one area around a lake up here in Sweden actually that has had these ghost rocket sightings back in '46 also had a very, a relationship to one particular lake where there had been sightings of going in and out, or I think the population up here thought that something crashed in the lake, and they actually did, they sent out boats and basically fishing through the lake to see, what was there basically. Have any of these kind of reports popped up in your research?
I didn't find the official report, but I did find mention in other authors' documentation or books that referenced one amazing sighting in 1942 that showed a bronze-colored aircraft that actually had the emblem of a Cheshire cat on it.
What?
That actually, that's the first time and only time I know of that an emblem was on the aircraft. And that object did go into the water.
Really?
It had a classic shape, yes. And it was the Tasman Peninsula near Tasmania in Australia, off the coast of Australia, that was observed. Once again, it's some older material that I found while researching some of the more historic UFO literature.
Yeah.
But no, I never found anything. I did. There were accounts of naval, ship sightings.
Sure.
Out over the ocean, they were seeing these aircrafts on radar, sometimes not on radar. But those reports exist too. And if you think it's hard getting Army Air Force records,
try Navy.
It's like,
why do you think that is? What's the difference there?
I don't know. I haven't figured it out. I mean, the people I've spoken with said, well, the Navy, water occupies most of the Earth, and they are the eyes and ears at that time. I don't know if that's true, but they were in areas where they were out, and the night sky was crystal clear. They had more opportunity to witness, but I'm not too sure. I don't know why the Navies would be able to be any different. Maybe their mandate in terms of withholding information and keeping it under wraps is more stringent than anyone else. Because you realize by the end of the war, the Army Air Force was dissipating.
Oh, okay.
By 1947, when Roswell occurred, it was very small, but it was Army Air Force. So September of 1947, they were able to bring it back and call it the United States Air Force. But it was downsized after the war. So there was a lot of problems there in terms of getting on our feet. So maybe that's one of the reasons that there's trouble getting those records. I've always felt that the Roswell records, a lot of people were going after the Air Force for these records. Well, again, the Air Force really did not exist. It was Army Air Force. That tells me that G2, which was regular Army, would be handling the records. And when Jesse Marcel had gone to the site to see the object, the crashed area, he was accompanied by Army counterintelligence. and Army counterintelligence are key to the whole sighting in terms of they were the ones filing some of the big reports.
Yeah.
And so I'm convinced that we just haven't really located the right group of records where these exist, if they're available to the public.
I see what you mean. Huh. So it's as you say, it's a haystack. It's a jungle to go through all these papers and documentation. And again, if there actually haven't been cleaned up yet, there potentially might be still nuggets, so to speak, out there. But again, the difficulty is to wade through all of these papers.
Absolutely. And there's another scary aspect to this story that's kind of sad and depressing at the same time. I can't tell you how many times I came across information, researchers, archivists, and records I actually saw myself that slated whole groups of documentation for destruction. Really? And I know a couple instances that left a mark on me in terms like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened, was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
One story that was related to me by the archivist up there, Mr. Young, I believe his name is, said that during, I guess in the 1960s, it could have been the 70s, they were building a golf course, or had built a golf course in an area.
Mm-hmm.
And beside that golf course was construction. And that area was surrounded by a chain link fence. And one of the officers had seen a piece of paper or something up on the chain link fence and walked over to it, and it was a blueprint for a rare ME-262. When they were doing construction, the bulldozers had uncovered whole areas that documents were dumped. Now, were they the only document, or were they microfilmed?
Yeah.
But the point is, document destruction was taking place. When the Cold War started, and there were a change of commanders, let's say a commanding officer would come into a unit, and we are now fighting the Russians, and there's no need to worry about Germans. I want those 4 filing cabinets destroyed, make room for new. And so you even had those kinds of examples. There's no telling what was destroyed, just because of lack of space,
yeah.
Someone not realizing the historical value.
Well, I mean, I tend to believe at least that archiving seems to be very, very important, I guess, even for military purposes of, as you say, going back historically, just, figuring out what happened or recreating an event or a battle or whatever it might be. So I tend to believe that they actually are very meticulous when it comes to, as you say, making copies into microfilm or something like that. But again, we don't know at this point, so.
We don't, and I would hope that, and I agree with you, there should be emphasis on keeping a very meticulous documentation of everything. But you hear the horror stories, and you're like, oh man, what did happen? What occurred that was just very unique, and because of that situation, we lost a chunk of history.
Yeah.
And so, but I hear that a lot as I've been researching through the archives. Oh, I heard this, or I see my paper showed, slated for destruction. Hundreds of paper. Like, well, what's in those?
Yeah. Very interesting. I want to pop out here a last question before we begin to round things up here for today, and that is in regards to all the filming that is occurring or taking place today. We have, of course, all the new technology with the cell phone cameras. We have DV cameras, everywhere. We have even CCTV cameras, surveillance and so forth. And a lot of sightings are taking place with this kind of, because of the new technology, basically. And we have video sites like YouTube and so forth. And I don't know how much you're following the reports of what is going on in regards to sightings when it comes to videos and so forth. But have you seen anything yet, that very, very much reminds you of what you saw when you were a kid in regards to what is out there in video today?
I have not. I have not seen anything, but I can't believe it's totally unique because in 1966 there was a UFO flap. What I learned in years later, that was occurring along the East Coast. So apparently there were many sightings between 65 and 68, I believe. So I don't feel it was unique. With what I've seen today, I have not seen anything that resembles that. And it's interesting you talk about the cell phones and the video cameras. I don't know of any other time in history where there's been so much capability available for everyone to use. And yet I haven't seen anything that says that blows me away. What I expect to see, and I'm sure many of the listeners agree, is I'm ready to see something captured like you'll see, just like looking at a movie. It should be that intense.
That good, so to speak.
You know, and I don't know how many reality shows are on TV that show accidents and air crashes and things like that. Remarkable footage that are captured on film by regular people, and they're astounding. And yet we can't seem to get a photograph or film that just blows everyone away, that the scientific community says, wow, we need to look into this. Are you aware of anything?
No. Again, it is these kind of small... It is something about the footage when I look at it. Again, I don't follow this, very much in that regard, that I'm kind of, I mean, when it comes across, so to speak, my news desk, I always look at it as much as possible. But I know that there's a lot of footage out there that I haven't seen. So again, I'm perhaps the wrong guy to ask here, but there's always something with the footage that kind of makes it less convincing, and in most cases it's not something that I can pinpoint and point my finger at and say, look at that's faulty, or this is a fraud because of this or whatever. It's more the feeling of it, the sense of it, and I should say even the quality sometimes is so low.
It seems to always be low quality.
Yeah.
And then when you do see something of high quality, then inevitably they're picking it apart, showing how it was manufactured.
Sure.
It's like, here in the States, we are inundated with reality TV. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it started actually in Europe, in Netherlands or something like that, so I'm familiar with the concept, yeah. Yeah,
and so there's tons of shows where we're seeing disasters. We're seeing just amazing footage of crazy things. And when I started seeing that and how much footage existed of that, things that, the timing had to be impeccable to capture that aircraft coming down without its wings on fire, an airliner.
Sure.
And in crystal clear, why we haven't picked it up. That's the biggest mystery to me that I'm really scratching my head over. If you were to look at it through the eyes of, we're being visited by something extraterrestrial.
Do you think that could imply that what we're looking at here or experience as I guess collective, we can say, than human race, so to speak, that this is something actually more psychological in nature than materialistic?
Oh, yes. Now we're getting into, other researchers' work like Jacques Vallée.
Yeah.
We're getting into realms that, we're dealing with something that's not really nuts and bolts.
Exactly.
It can present itself as so, but it can also manipulate on other levels that we're just not aware of.
Yeah.
And, you're talking about the realm of the abduction phenomena where the abductees are manipulated to think they're seeing something else. Maybe a deer walking across the road, or just a bright light, but under therapy they realize, oh, this was a masked type of observation that kept me from freaking out. I don't know what, but again, everything that's said is attacked by the skeptic or the debunker or whatever that says, well, you're just dealing with psychological issues. You're not dealing with something extraordinary.